Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the franchipreneur who owns one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. We have a great show this morning. We're meeting with Brian Spindel of the PostNet franchise opportunity. And the rapid growth of the small office, home office market has been hard to ignore. Today's technology has given people more than ever the opportunity to start small businesses. Conversely, a tremendous need for services and products to support those enterprises has resulted. PostNet is the only company in its industry to successfully position itself as the ultimate business center, serving the explosive small office, home office market by providing one-stop convenience for copying, printing, and finishing services, digital services, and packing, shipping, and mailing services. And that's coming up in segment 2 of Franchise Interviews. Our show today is being sponsored by Franchise Interviews, LLC, and Franchise Interviews gives you an up-close and behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show on Blog Talk Radio, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and franchise attorneys. And our monthly franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise. And don't forget to check out our new podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. And Don, welcome back to another edition of Franchise Interviews. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, Marty. How about yourself?
Beautiful day here in Pennsylvania. It's almost a perfect day. Not too hot, not too cold. So.
Yeah, like a perfect type of temperature. It's just, it's a nice time of the year, fall time.
Football season's here.
Yeah. I was going to say most people love the summer, but I'm the type of guy that after a few months of the heat,
right.
I get tired of it, don't mind the cooler weather. And you're right, football's starting, the new shows. My kids just started preschool yesterday, so that's exciting.
Oh.
Time in our family. They're all looking
That's a milestone, isn't it?
Yes.
You've had a lot of milestones since we've been doing the show, too, Don, with the kids. It's just, there's been a lot of them.
Right. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It should be my new nickname, maybe.
Our last show, Don, we met with Dr. Scott Shane on his recent book, The Illusions of Entrepreneurship, which is a new book by Dr. Scott Shane, challenges the myth that we hold about entrepreneurs in America, who they are, what they do, how they succeed. The book shows that the reality of entrepreneurship is decidedly different from the myths that have come to surround it. Scott Shane is a leading expert in entrepreneurial activity in the United States and also other countries, and he draws on the data and extensive research to provide accurate, useful information about who becomes an entrepreneur and why, how businesses are started, which factors led to success, and which predict a likely failure. I thought it was a real eye-opener, wasn't it? What were your thoughts on last week? Different kind of show.
Yeah, definitely. Dr. Shane had a lot of interesting viewpoints. One I thought was really interesting. He feels entrepreneurship could be in your genes. Wasn't that an interesting point?
He started the show off on that, which, I'd love to bring him back on the show and just kind of talk about that. It's been something that, I've spoken about in the past. Are entrepreneurs born, or, can you teach entrepreneurship? So it's pretty interesting. I guess, he's probably going to write a book on that topic as well, I suspect.
Right. He, of course, really liked the franchise industry. He even wrote a book about it.
He did, from the franchisor's perspective. So, it really could have been a 2-hour show. I mean, there was a lot of questions that we had for him, and unfortunately we just couldn't get everything in. But
right. And his whole life has really been entrepreneurship. I think he's the son of entrepreneurs.
Yes, like yourself, right? I mean, I guess your dad, being an entrepreneur, and
right.
That was kind of interesting with the whole gene factor, It's so that is interesting. But yeah, I didn't realize that he was kind of born into entrepreneurship, so like you just mentioned.
He definitely feels that your best bet for going into business to either buy a franchise, startup or acquisition, or just buy an existing business, franchise or non-franchise.
Right.
He was very pro in that direction on starting out to have a higher success rate, of course.
It was interesting. I mean, he was very big on what industry somebody decided to go into. We spoke about, we get into like the power of persistence and not giving up and things like that. And he says, what, that's all great, but, even if you're getting into a bad industry, it's still not going to work, and right. It was an interesting, he gave a ton of statistics during that show, but there's, it said like 30% of people that go into their own business believed that they didn't have a niche in the market, so there was really no reason to use their service over the competition, and I that was a big wow, all these people going into business really kind of doomed to fail, it's
also a lot of people just not doing their homework and their due diligence in going into a business, whether you're investigating a franchise or looking at some other type of non-franchise business. I think you mentioned a lot of people don't do enough before they start to kind of jump into it.
Right. I think it is one of those must-read books, before you do decide to go into your own business. I think he said, the reason that he wrote it was to kind of throw cold water on aspiring entrepreneurs, because, again, they have all this passion and things like that, but, kind of think twice, and as you just mentioned, do your homework. There was a conclusion he wrote in the book. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I want people to buy the book, but it says, we need to change the way we think about entrepreneurship. Our collective belief that the typical entrepreneur is a hero with special powers that led him to build a great company, which innovates, creates jobs, makes markets more competitive, and enhances economic growth is a myth. And our sense that the typical new business provides a great deal of benefit for its founder, his employees and customers, and society at large is also wrong. Our myths about entrepreneurship and the policies we have developed in response to them are leading too many people to become entrepreneurs, causing financial hardship for many and hindering our economic. So again, it's really, as you said, Don, do your homework. Read the book. It's called The Illusions of Entrepreneurship. It's by Scott Shane. You can actually order it at Amazon.com. So great book.
Definitely.
So what do we got going? Yeah. What do we got going on today and over the next? I know we have a busy schedule. We're actually booked until mid-January of 2009, if you can imagine. So
what
are some highlights?
Show.
Yeah.
Well, the highlights are always us. No.
There you go. And we got a great show today too, don't we? I mean, we've been looking forward to this show for a long time, having Brian on the show. And,
Brian Spindel, very successful franchise. We're excited to hear all about PostNet and their history and what they have going on, their growth. Next week, Marty, September 18th, meeting with the franchise Baby Power.
That's right.
Linda Sarles.
It's an interesting concept, that we're going to learn about, and hopefully a lot of mommies are going to be listening during that show.
Right. September 25th, Holly Shilladay from Snell and Wilmer firm.
That's right. We've had several attorneys from Snell and Wilmer up to this point, and every time we've had them on the show, they've been nothing but informative. So looking forward to
aren't they out of Denver too, like PostNet?
It's the franchise capital of the America.
October 2nd, Marty, we're going to have on the I Sold It franchise, the eBay concept.
That's right, and that's a franchisee too. I think we're having on that show, Don. That's William Finkman, who's one of the youngest franchisees. I don't say of all time, but he's a very young guy and achieved a lot of success for I think he's barely in his 20s. So it goes to show you the power of franchising. It's and we've had a lot of discussions on the show as far as should college graduates or younger people get into franchising and.
Right.
William,
like it's worked for him, so we'll hear that.
It has. It's worked very well for him, and again, he was a good match for franchising, so that was kind of interesting.
About a month from now, October 9th, Moran Industries, that has several of the automotive concepts like Mr. Transmission, Altamir, Milex, so we're looking forward to that. Down the road, we're going to be having Valpak, Cousin Subs, just a lot of stuff coming up over.
That's right. I think it's Valpak, Cousin Subs. There's another one called 10 Till 2. You can actually go to franchiseinterviews.com, and if you go to our franchise radio page, it'll talk about the upcoming shows, like I'm on the website right now, Don. Superior Wash franchise opportunity on January 8th of 2009. And then there's another franchise called Naturel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think they're a carpet cleaning business, so I'm going to have to look more into them. But
and somewhere mixed in all of that's going to be our 100th anniversary show. So
how can we forget that? Yeah, there's a lot of surprises that we haven't announced yet, but a lot of celebrity guests and things like that. So it's hard to imagine our 100th show, and again, I've said it a dozen times, but it really seems like yesterday that we started doing it with PV Loco, and it just turned into this big thing, So it's really amazing what's happened.
Type of day you do the show and then take the rest of the day off.
Absolutely. And there are some interesting articles as well that kind of match, today's theme of being, I guess, was September 11th.
Yeah, I got something I'll get to in a second. First, something out of MediaWeek.com. NBC Sports teams up with 7-Eleven, very popular convenience store franchise.
Oh,
pretty sure they're the largest convenience store in the country. It's a franchise. In-store promotions in more than 6,000 7-Eleven stores will include special cups and hot dog containers that are pre-printed with the 2008 NBC Sunday Night Football game schedule. This is by John Conversely. Just last week. NBC Sports is teaming up with 7-Eleven for a major promotion that will send 4 7-Eleven customers and their guests to watch the live production of NBC's Football Night in America studio show that airs prior and at halftime of NBC's Sunday Night Football telecasts.
Wow.
Mike McCarley, VP Marketing, Promotions, and Communications, NBC Universal Sports and Olympics, is hoping the partnership and promotion will not only reach avid football fans and regular Sunday Night Football telecast, but also millions of casual fans. It says, Marty, Sunday night is football night, and not just for diehard fans, but for their friends and family who gather around the TV and watch the game as a social occasion, he says. Partnering with 7-Eleven allows us to reach millions more avid and casual football fans each week, allows those fans to stock up for Sunday night's big matchups.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's come on, whereas Monday Night Football used to be the big thing, and it's still, they still have that. There's also a Sunday night game, which is good. It kind of completes the whole day of.
It sure does, yeah.
The whole
full
day of
day.
football. In-store promotions in more than 6,000 7-Eleven stores will include special cups and hot dog containers, pre-printed, have all their logos on it. Then a few people will win a trip to New York City to visit the pregame show. So that's pretty interesting.
That's great. That's another the power of franchising, Don. You know what I mean? That the small business just cannot come up with, so.
Right. Here's something. Wendy's moves fast amid McDonald's confusion by Marlene Lukovitz, September 2nd. Says, moving fast while arch rival McDonald's is still sorting out the fate of its hugely popular $1 double cheeseburger, Wendy's is replacing its 99-cent Stack Attack with a slightly different, although already existing 99-cent burger, the double stack cheeseburger. I guess you always got to be doing this type of stuff to stay ahead of the competition.
Right, product development, yeah.
Simultaneously, Wendy's is launching a marketing push promoting the double stack in tandem with 2 existing 99-cent sandwiches on its value menu, the Junior Bacon Cheeseburger and Crispy Chicken Sandwich. My kids love McDonald's, and so we've been going there more the last couple of years than I've ever have, I think in my life. They have
imagine.
Kids toys and stuff. So these toys are always interesting. These, these huge, some of the most popular franchises nationwide kind of going at it a little bit.
Right.
Fast food bloggers have been typing overtime since early August when the Wall Street Journal broke the story that McDonald's, in response to higher cheese prices and expected higher beef prices this fall, is testing changes to the $1 double cheeseburger. That item has been both the anchor of McDonald's 8-item $1 menu and a main sales driver since 2003. I mean,
really?
Places really do have good prices. To get a double cheeseburger for just $1 is
absolutely.
Pretty incredible. I thought that was interesting. Always the wars going on between the big boys. And I guess, Marty, staying on the subject, talking about entrepreneurship, Dr. Shane, here's something the Wall Street Journal, Why Small Business Owners Aren't Always Entrepreneurs by Kelly Spores. It's an interesting article. It says, many people use the terms entrepreneur and small business owner interchangeably, but some entrepreneurship experts, like Bo Fishback, Vice President of Entrepreneurship at the Kauffman Foundation, argue that a distinction should be made. Mr. Fishback told the crowd at the Society of American Business Editors and Writers Conference in Kansas City just a couple days ago that entrepreneurs are those people who generate new revolutionary ideas and bringing them to the marketplace. Their ideas are innovative, making our society more efficient and often helping spur the U.S. economy by evolving into high-growth firms. Once these dynamic entrepreneurs create one idea, they often move on to the next.
Right. And that's the whole thing of if we have any new listeners to the show today, Don, is to read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, because he makes a very big distinction, doesn't he, between the entrepreneur versus the small business owner, it's very important.
As a matter of fact, he says a small business owner is an entrepreneur who has failed. That's what Michael Gerber said, says as far as entrepreneurship. It's interesting. A small business owner is an entrepreneur who has failed.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the article goes on. It says, so that was entrepreneur. A small business owner, by contrast, start a business, and once they grow big enough to support themselves and their families, they have no intentions of growing this much more. This might be the corner barber shop or the hordes of the self-employed. Perhaps they were entrepreneurs when they first started their business or generated their idea, but they lose that title once they're settled into the day-to-day running of a business. Once they decide, okay, I have enough to make a decent living for the family, they're sort of shifting out of entrepreneurship, Mr. Fishback said.
Which is dangerous, I guess, right? I mean, it's you know, to just kind of be passive like that and just be comfortable with just having maybe one cleaners or something like that, you know. It's just, and again, they're working in the business and not on the business, you know. It's, again, that's another big distinction between the entrepreneur versus the small business owner.
Right. So why do we care who's called what? Entrepreneurs are economic drivers that create jobs and bring new ideas into the marketplace. These entrepreneurs should be studied and fostered in the U.S. economy because they will help keep it vibrant into the future. Small business owners make a contribution to the economy, he says, but not often do to the same degree as entrepreneurs.
Right.
And then a couple people made comments. This guy Bob Coleman says, I completely agree with Mr. Fishback. Even though I find myself using the terms interchangeably, there's definitely a distinction. In my opinion, it revolves around aspiration. Entrepreneurs are always aspire to be bigger, make more money, open new locations. Small business owners are typically satisfied with the status quo plus 5 to 10% every year growth.
Interesting.
And this is a comment by this lady, Sarah. She says, I couldn't disagree more. This assumes that there is some plateau a business owner can arrive at, a static point where a business can operate without needing to respond to external conditions and events. Any business owner who stops responding to what goes externally will wind up left behind by the world and find herself out of business. Any small business that survived Katrina or 9/11 is owned by someone who is undoubtedly an entrepreneur, whether they own a newsstand, a shoe repair shop, or an innovative technology firm. After the World Trade Center attacks, I volunteered at a grant-making organization in Lower Manhattan and talked to hundreds of small business owners as they sought funding to keep their businesses alive. One woman called on behalf of her husband's business in the World Financial Center. The business was dependent on a particular piece of machinery. The machine survived the collapse of the towers, caked with dust and debris. In the weeks after the attacks, he talked his way past checkpoints to clean off the machine and get it working. He went back in later on to find that the $30,000 machine had been scooped up by a backhoe and taken away. He somehow regrouped and later reopened at the World Financial Center, where his business still stands today. This guy didn't invent anything new, but he invented a way for his business to survive a terrible disaster, as well as the failure of 100,000 people in his prospective customer base to return to the area, not to mention the continuing change in the area. This guy demonstrated that turn-on-a-dime agility at the heart of entrepreneurship, regardless of what his business looks like or what kind of return he's making. So she's saying sometimes entrepreneurship can be meaning being creative and adapting to some type of change, usually a change that, you couldn't foresee coming.
That's interesting. I mean, it's something in marketing we talk about the marketing environment, external threats and opportunities to the business, and this is an advantage of going into franchising, because I'm going to say that the franchisee doesn't have to worry about it, but really the franchisor is doing most of that thinking, kind of looking at the marketing environment and asking themselves, what's going on in the industry, what new technology is available for my franchisees. So, you kind of get, you can get away from that in franchising, where the other guys, the small business owner, can be really threatening to their business, to not pay attention to what that woman says. She had a great quote, pay attention to the environment and what's going on, where franchising, you can kind of sort of avoid that, and kind of trust the franchisor, to do all that stuff. So it's a very powerful article.
Marty, do you think, say someone, opens up a PostNet and they open up a few locations, maybe they diversify, they own some other type of business down the line. I mean, is that person considered an entrepreneur?
It's a good question. I would say so. I mean, according to this, I mean, again, they're growing their business. I mean, it depends who we had on the show. I mean, I think if we had Michael Gerber on the show, he would probably, I suspect he might say no. I don't know, because the entrepreneur being the person who actually creates the franchise, with the PostNet opportunity, I mean, that would be Brian and I think it's Scott, the kind of like the founders. of the company. So they are the true entrepreneurs.
Right.
Where I guess it's one of those things that are up for debate. I mean, in the beginning, if you remember our show, we used to always have our tagline, "Ask the entrepreneur who owns one." And the day after we had Michael Gerber on the show, we changed the slogan to "Ask the Frantrepreneur who owns one." So
right.
Yeah, that's a good question, Don. But I guess you'd get a mixed reaction on that as well. I mean, some people think franchisees are entrepreneurs. So
right.
It depends, I guess, on how you define an entrepreneur. Now, you asked a good question last week to Dr. Scott. I don't know if you remember this, but you asked him what his definition of an entrepreneur is, and he had a very basic definition. I don't know if you remember what he said. I think he said anyone who starts their own business.
Right.
Right? So
yeah.
It would be interesting debate having someone like Dr. Shane on the show and then Michael Gerber at the same time. It would
probably be a lot of different viewpoints. Very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. So it's a great article, though. And again, it kind of applies to, what's going on today. September 11th. Which is, a monumental day. So,
right.
But today, Don, we have a great show, as we were saying earlier. We're meeting with Brian Spindel of the PostNet franchise opportunity. And Brian is the president and COO of PostNet. And Brian has more than, I don't know if you know this, he has more than 20 years of experience managing and performing various operational roles in the company, including systems coordination, marketing, franchise development, and training. Brian is directly responsible for the development and operation of PostNet franchise locations worldwide, and they're kind of all over, spread throughout the world, actually, and holds the designation of CFE, a Certified Franchise Executive. PostNet is the largest and fastest-growing privately held company in the business services and postal industries. Hey, Brian, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, Brian. Brian, joining us is my co-host, Don Johnson, and I know, Don, you wanted to say good morning to Brian.
Hey, Brian, thanks for coming on. How are you? How are things?
You're welcome. I'm very pleased to be here today.
Good.
Thanks, Brian. Brian, we always like to start off asking our guests, where are you calling from this morning?
Sure. I'm calling from PostNet World headquarters in Denver, Colorado.
Which is amazing. We were just saying last week, Brian, I think Colorado or Denver has become like the capital for franchising, it seems like.
Yeah, we've got a great franchise community here, a lot of franchisors, a lot of suppliers, of course, a lot of attorneys.
Right, exactly, absolutely.
So it's really great. We moved here about 3 years ago from Nevada.
That's right.
And Las Vegas was a great area to do business in, but there wasn't a big franchising contingent there. So we're happy to be here.
That's fantastic.
What do you think, Brian? What's the reason why Denver's, I guess, favorable laws for businesses for Colorado? Or is it just kind of coincidence?
Beautiful
city.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a great place to live. But I think that because it's relatively central in the country, time zone wise and geographical. And I think that it's got a really great workforce. In fact, I've heard it's one of the most educated workforces in the country. So I think that those contribute to the fact that a lot of franchisors like to call it home.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian, what were you doing before starting PostNet franchise?
Well, I was trying to get my way through college, actually. Steve Greenbaum, my business partner and the CEO of PostNet, we started a store, a pack and ship type business in 1983. Right. So we've really been in this all of our adult life, and that store led us down a path to helping others into the business independently in the mid '80s and into the early '90s, and then we came up with the PostNet brand in 1991 and started franchising it in 1993. So we're celebrating 15 years in franchising this year.
So congratulations on that. Yeah, and the growth has been tremendous too. We've been following you guys.
Yeah, it's been nice and steady. We're not in a kind of an explosive growth company, if you will. We've grown over the years, and we like the quality growth versus the quantity growth.
Absolutely, it's important.
And you guys are always out there. I see at the franchise shows. Always have a pretty good location. Always have a nice setup. It's worth the investment. Really get the PostNet name out there.
Well, and that's important. I think it's important that we, part of our responsibility as a franchisor is not just taking care of our franchisees and providing support and everything, but is growing the system. And so, we're very involved in franchising. Steve Greenbaum is actually the chairman of the IFA this year,
That's
so we're getting some additional exposure that way. And so it's really been great. It's been a fun business to be involved in.
So you must have started, Brian, at a young age working through college, because you're talking about just being in your early 20s already, starting up your own business. You're pretty entrepreneurial at a young age.
Yeah, we got involved when I was in my third year of college, and because we were successful right off the bat, and I regret to say I didn't finish. So we got busy enough and successful enough with it where I thought it made sense to kind of jump off and do this thing full time, and fortunately for us and everybody involved in our organization, our staff and our franchisees, it's worked out well for us.
Yeah, it sounds like the Bill Gates story, Brian. If you think about it, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, don't make Brian move up to Seattle now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I see in 2003 too. I guess Steve received the IFA Entrepreneur of the Year award too, Brian, which was fantastic for you guys.
Yes, he did. Yeah, it was a really big honor, and alongside with guys like Fred DeLuca of Subway. I mean, that's a really substantial award to win.
Oh, absolutely.
And, we were tickled about it. So
that's fantastic.
And like you said, always following the names, stories, is PostNet name. I see you guys all over the place, and throughout the franchise industry. So, you've had a nice background, Brian. Talk a little bit about the history of PostNet.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, we got involved in this industry when it was kind of in a fledgling state. I think there was maybe a couple hundred stores, if that, on the West Coast when we opened our shop in the Las Vegas area in '83. And as we became successful with that store, people would come into us and be shipping their stuff back home from their visit with their relatives in Vegas and saying, hey, listen, there's nothing like this in Pennsylvania. What is this thing?
Right.
And it didn't take too many people asking us that before somebody asked us to help them get started. And we started in 1985 helping others into the business, but we did it the only way we knew how, which was independently. So people would choose their own name, and we'd help them find a location and help them get set up. And but there was no, it wasn't a franchise because there was no trademark and there was no royalties and there was no control and so on and so forth. And then as the business and the industry kind of became more competitive, more complex, more sophisticated, into the late 80s and early 90s, we felt the need to sophisticate ourselves and become more structured in our approach. And so in 1991, we started putting the pieces in place to start the franchise program, and in July of 1993, we rolled it out. So it's been an evolution, and even as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, we around our 10th anniversary in franchising, we started on a new strategic planning process, which the product of which was a new store design, new training, new vendors, and the diversification from just the pack and ship into the digital document services. So our stores today do a lot of printing, copying, digital printing, finishing services, and that's been a big growth area for us in our stores. So while these stores started as a kind of a convenience business for a homemaker wanting to ship some birthday presents, it's now we're still serving that customer, and we want to continue to serve that customer. That's why we go into retail strip centers, but we also now have a business-to-business component that's strong and growing.
Fantastic.
And
one-stop shopping, Brian. It makes it easy for the.
It's important today. I mean, everybody has less leisure time, less time with their family,
right.
and especially with energy prices and everything else, people have to become more efficient with the way that they approach things.
Absolutely.
And so doing more than one thing at one location makes a lot of sense. And of course, our stores are very diversified when it comes to our product and service mix.
I agree.
Yeah.
And with so many people wanting to start up their own business, and sometimes their funds, their capital a little tight, a business like PostNet is perfect. You can handle everything. Get everything done and still make it look like you're a very large company. And and that's our primary customer. I mean, small office, home office, business startups, home-based businesses, micro businesses. They use us as their outsourced resource. I mean, our store a lot of times is their office away from their office.
and and they use us for their mailing address, they use us for their copy services, their printing, they use us for their to receive faxes for them, so we can become their mailing address and a lot more. So.
Did you and Steve really align yourself with experts, consultants, as you were going through the franchising process, or you guys had about close to 10 years in the business? I guess you did a lot of it yourself, or did you have some?
Yeah, well, when we were thinking about starting to franchise, we took it very seriously because we had we had a good deal of competency when it came to helping people find their location, negotiate a lease, and get their store built. But the whole piece on the back end, which was really a big responsibility, which is to support them and have vendor relations programs and manage a national advertising fund and provide them with technology on an ongoing basis and put controls in place so the brand is protected. All of those things we weren't really sure of, and that's why we got involved in the International Franchise Association, quite frankly. So we didn't use a lot of consultants, kind of pay-to-play consultants per se. But the IFA has been great because it's allowed us to network with franchise executives that have been there and done that, and that's kind of why we've gotten so involved ourselves now that we have the experience and the knowledge. Is kind of trying to give back to new franchise companies, and so we that's why we're as involved as we are because we initially were the beneficiaries of the IFA and the collective wisdom of a lot of people in franchising that helped us.
Are you pretty amazed by just the growth of franchising, Brian? What's been going on the last 5 years? I mean, it's just pretty incredible. Marty and I always talk about the stats: over 80 industries, around 3,000 franchises.
I am amazed, but I'm not surprised. I mean, franchising done right, let me put it that way, is a very powerful vehicle. And I heard you guys talking earlier about entrepreneurialism and, our franchisees, entrepreneurs. Well, I can tell you from my experience, franchisees certainly have an entrepreneurial spirit to them. And as a franchisor, I think that any franchisor that tries to squash that or clip their wings, so to speak, is kind of hindering the success of the franchise organization. So I think that there's a delicate balance, but by having open channels of communication, collaboration, kind of a very good culture in your franchise organization, you can leverage your franchisees' entrepreneurialism for everybody's benefit, because the best ideas and the best input and things come from franchisees that are entrepreneurs. They're thinking every day about how to do things better.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that was something I was reading in your philosophy, Brian, is that you guys really do value the input of your franchisees, and I think that's very important. Don and I, since we've been doing the show, I mean, we've come up with great stories, haven't we, Don, as far as like even McDonald's, some of their best ideas have come from the franchisees. So I think that's very important that you guys do that.
Right. Well, and I think that any organization that doesn't is kind of setting themselves up for relationship problems down the road. I mean,
I agree.
Those open channels can feed your ideas, but also they can make you aware of franchisee dissatisfaction, franchisee issues, franchisee concerns, and it allows the organization to address those issues before they become big problems. And I've seen a lot of good franchise concepts hindered or taken down by just relationship issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
how do you describe the PostNet franchise system to a potential franchisee, Brian?
Well, what we do is we try to make them aware of the fact that our owner operators are hands-on owner operators, that they're involved in the community, and our concept is a very diversified concept. So we're serving, as I mentioned earlier, both the consumers that live in the area, live and work in the areas, that have personal needs to have items shipped and mailed and things like that. But we also are servicing the business community with the document services, the printing and copying and finishing and everything else. So we're looking, for somebody who is looking for a hands-on opportunity, and also understands the importance of servicing both of those communities and becoming active. So generally, the concept itself is, these are not new services and products. People, these are not, shipping a package or having something printed or outputted is not a new service. It's bringing it all together in a outstanding environment. We have a really great store design that we've developed with a proven system. And then having local execution with respect to the franchisee becoming a part of the community is what our concept's all about.
Such a large customer base. I mean, I guess that's why PostNet is so successful. I mean, that combination of the consumer and the business community, all these services in a convenient manner is, I guess, in a nutshell, why you guys are having such nice growth.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of crossover business too. I mean, once a customer tries us and starts using maybe one service, what happens is they start getting comfortable with us. And PostNet's goal really is to become the customer or the business's source for everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
What role has technology played for PostNet, Brian?
Well, it's played a really big role. I mean, even if you take a look at our industry and the growth of this business started in the early '80s, and it's no coincidence that it's the same time that the PC came out and the Macintosh commercial in 1986, and as people have been empowered with this technology, computers and connectivity and everything else. All it's done is it's driven home-based businesses, the small and micro businesses that we service. It's driven the document services. I mean, I know you guys may remember when computers became popular, all the paper company stocks were challenged because people thought, oh, well, paper's going to go away now. And all computers have done is empowered people to create more documents that need to be outputted. And so, so really the technology and the computer has driven our business. And now we have a lot of customers that are, they send us work, for the digital document services. They don't even come into the store. I mean, we have on PostNet.com, we have a very nice utility that allows our customers to get us big files very easily for output, give us some basic parameters of what they want done, and then our franchisee contacts them and works with them to make sure that the project is done properly. So
that must make the franchisees have a comfort level. Always. Wondering, about people coming through the door, but they could be making money without people even coming to the store, or a bad weather situation. That's a great, income.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that the customer appreciates it too, because it's both high tech and it's high touch. I think that when you're ordering something that's important, for the reputation of your business, or even somebody who's with a bigger company and it's got to be right, just ordering it online without a interface with an actual person at a bricks and mortar location that's going to be producing the work, it's leaving a lot to chance. And so with PostNet, what they get is they get the high tech. They can easily interface with us electronically and everything, but they also get the customer service. They get the personalized service. They're talking with the franchisee or their staff and making sure that the job's going to be done just right. So it's a nice mix in today's world of both high tech and high touch.
Right. So it sounds like your franchisees, Brian, I mean, they don't necessarily have to be like computer geeks, but I guess they have to be comfortable with technology as well, right?
Generally we don't want IT, we have some IT professionals, but we're not looking for ex-IT people. We're really looking for people that are comfortable with technology and not afraid of it. And because our business has evolved, I mean, looking at from where we started, it was so simple that you could, put up a folding table and a bathroom scale and a cigar box and you were a shipping store, to today when, that you have to do so much, and the business is going to continue to evolve and develop. So we want people also who embrace change and aren't resistant to change.
That's so important.
And that right there is such, is why people invest in a franchise.
Right.
Your average type of businessman might get lost in the shuffle there, whereas having the backing of a strong corporation, someone like PostNet, can kind of lessen that curve, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, it's a big reason to be a franchisee, not just in our system, but in other systems, is that the franchisor wears some very important hats with respect to keeping their ear to the ground on what's happening in the industry, what additional things customers are looking for technology. I mean, the nice thing about this kind of technology is the costs are shared amongst hundreds of entrepreneurs versus one individual entrepreneur having to figure out how to create and develop it at their sole expense. So there's a lot of efficiencies involved in franchising, and that's one of the things that makes it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a strong franchisee. Can't wait to pay that royalty fee, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I try to remind, especially the more mature franchisees that have been with us for years and years and years and have grown their sales to very high levels, that the goal when we sat down at the table and signed the franchise agreement with them was that one day they would be paying us a lot of money.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Because at the table they'll always agree. Oh yeah, absolutely. I hope I'm writing you big checks one day. And then when that day comes, you got to kind of remind them that was congratulations. We've reached the goal,
Exactly. Oh, that's something. This industry is growing too, Brian. I mean, are there any numbers on the industry as far as like where you're at right now?
Well, as far as our industry is concerned, I mentioned that when we got involved in the early 80s, there were just a few hundred businesses, if that. And today there are over 10,000 businesses in kind of the pack and ship space, and so there are big franchise competitors, and then there's still a good number of independent shops, some of them which we helped get open in the 80s. But now that we're a hybrid, we have to kind of say, well, we're not only in the pack and ship business, and of course our stores do UPS and FedEx and DHL. We're authorized by all of the major carriers, so we offer our customers a choice. But then we also have the print and copy side. So now we are part of the quick print industry, and as you guys probably would think of a number of different brands off the top of your head that are part of that business. And we've got competition in the big box companies like Staples, OfficeMax, Office Depot have put in document services. And I think anytime you're in a business that's got such a huge demand, like the shipping business, which is over $100 billion a year business, and then the document services piece, which is also a $100 billion a year industry, that you're going to have a lot of competition. And PostNet, what we're looking for is we're in the neighborhood, we're close to people, we offer that personalized service, and so what we do is we focus on the niche of, again, the businesses that appreciate the convenience, the one-stop, and the personalized service that our franchisees can provide.
Great. Seems like, Brian, 10,000 throughout the country, and there's still a lot of room for growth. I imagine you probably didn't have the quick printing and the big box stores, but it seems like a lot of room for growth.
Well, PostNet, like I said earlier, we've grown one franchisee at a time. We're still founder owned and operated. Steve or I personally sit down with every person that joins this franchise system before they sign their franchise agreement, just to make sure that we're making a good decision. And and so we still have a lot of opportunity and a lot of room for growth. I mean, we ultimately we've got about 500 stores in the U.S. and about 400 outside of the U.S. So we've got some international development that's been going very well. But we envision ultimately this system being 1,000 to 1,500 stores in the U.S. So we still have a lot of work to do and a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity.
And I think that's a big selling point. A new franchisee can sit down with the owners. So you just talked about that a little bit. What are some of the specific characteristics you look for, Brian, for a potential franchisee?
Yeah. Well,
you like them to have sales experience? Do you?
Well, we don't want them to. We want an extrovert, not an introvert. I mean, basically they have to be willing to kind of go out and expose themselves in business networking environments to other businesses. A lot of people like that, though. They like the concept of, they like the prestige and the fact that this is a very clean service business, that they're going to be dealing with other small business owners. So it's it's a business that a lot of people enjoy, and it's also a business that has relatively sane business hours. But we're looking, as we mentioned, somebody who's not afraid of technology, somebody who's a team player and outgoing, somebody who embraces change and isn't afraid of it. And we're also looking for someone who's looking to put a full-time effort into hands-on operation of the business, at least initially until they're ready to open a second or third location, and then they can go put a full-time hands-on effort at getting additional stores going.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as far as absentee ownership. So I guess maybe once that franchisee can get a few locations going, maybe hire a manager. And I guess that's the involvement.
Yeah, it is. But this is not. Some franchise concepts out there say, well, hey, keep your day job and and put managers in the stores. Our business doesn't work well in that scenario. We're really looking for people who are able to, put an effort into it initially, and then, like you said, later on, we have franchisees that have been open for many years, and they have a key employer manager, and
right.
They're not on the schedule. They come in when they want to come in, and put in the time that they need to, but they're also appreciating and reaping the rewards of those early years in putting everything in place.
Right.
Interesting.
This next question, Brian, is always a question that usually stumps people. What's the most interesting thing that's happened to you since joining PostNet? You talked about the growth of the industry. There might be something else, though?
Yeah, well, the most interesting thing, I think, has been just the changes in evolution. I think that every time we've made a change, I think it's been from a position of strength, which is great. It's great to not have to be scrambling because you're worrying about problems or issues or concerns. But the change has been surprising to me. I mean, how regular and consistent the improvement of the system and those kind of things. That's been the piece that's kind of kept me engaged and stimulated, and I guess that's been surprising on its own. Is that, boy, I've been doing this now, 25 years in the business and 15
right.
years in franchising, and I'm still having a lot of fun and still very stimulated and challenged by it, and that's been surprising to me.
That's
just
so
the difference in the business model today compared to when you first franchised the company. Right. A lot of change. That is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that and you guys know because you're kind of students of the business, but the graveyard of past brands is littered with the bones of companies that didn't change, that
right.
didn't improve, that didn't stay relevant in the marketplace and constantly challenge themselves to be better.
That's so true. Now, what's the training like, Brian, for your new franchisees?
Yeah, the training for new franchisees is a three-step process. Like a lot of franchise companies, we have a classroom program, and that's a couple weeks, and that's to teach not just the basic blocking and tackling of business, because we can't assume anything. I mean, we teach basic marketing, basic accounting, and everything else. But that's done in a classroom, and there's a lab in the back of the classroom for hands-on stuff, and we try to keep them engaged and excited during that 2 weeks. And then we go out with one of our certified trainers is on site for a week with the franchisee in getting the store open. So midway through that week, the store actually opens for business, and we call that a soft opening because it's a very light promotion and advertising at that point. And then we go back, I think the unique thing is we go back about 45 days after the store is opened. And this is a very valuable, we call it a follow-up training visit, but basically what we're able to do during that visit is, touch on anything that the franchisees had any problems or challenges with. B, at that point, we have 6 weeks of sales data, so we can kind of run some reports and take a look with the franchisee at how things are going,
right.
talk about, kind of the trending and if they're on track and everything else. And then C, the problem is that people have a capacity to absorb a certain amount. So, during the classroom, it's great. They absorb a lot of information and data there, but it's on the basics of management and operation of the store. And then our trainers on site, and basically at that point, they're just worried about helping customers because they're going to open the store at that point. So they want to be proficient and have their staff proficient and being able to deliver the services and products. But much more than that, once you start talking about some advanced things like how to manage your customer database, or how to do some financial analysis, or if you try to teach that at that point when they're really worried about helping customers, you're gonna lose them. So by going back later on for that follow-up visit, we can get into some of the more advanced stuff, and at that point, helping customers is second nature. They're not worried about that anymore.
Right,
they've learned it, they've done it, and they've got the experience and confidence that goes along with that. So we find that follow-up training visit is really one of the best things we've incorporated. We incorporated that about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
You kind of let the franchisee catch their breath a little bit. It's kind of been a whirlwind from going through training, trying to find their site and lease. Sometimes people have to go through the loan process, and that can be daunting.
Yep.
So then they're opening up, nervous about, confident, of course, training. But yes, you want to start off well and start to hit your numbers. So it's a good idea going back and just reassessing, and with added information is a good idea.
Yeah, we found it to be very valuable.
Yeah, and I think it's
for
like
us
with any
and the franchisee.
Absolutely right. Like with any franchise, I think it's information overload. I think for a lot of these guys, and I guess who are your franchisees, Brian? Have you had like husband and wife franchisees? Have they come from corporate America? I mean,
I think our typical demographic is 45 to 55 years old. This is a first-time business for them. So they've worked for someone else, accumulated some savings and some wealth, and really the primary motivator we find. I mean, certainly we get people that are tired of traveling and want to spend more time with their kids and have their Sundays off and so on and so forth. But the primary motivator is they've kind of overachieved in the workforce, and they've made somebody else successful, some other company, some other entrepreneur, some person, and they're like, hey, listen, if I'm going to be putting in this level of effort in order to in my employment, why am I not doing this for myself?
Exactly. And what's a typical day like, Brian, for your franchisees? Like, I mean, from the moment they get there in the morning till like the end of the day, what's that like?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're doing business owner stuff. It's one thing that we try to make sure that they understand is that that we have to utilize staff in the stores, and that staff is there for customer service and what we'll call clerking or counter operations. And we don't want the franchisee to become the technician. We want them to be the owner, the manager, the person that is So when they come in, basically they should be looking at yesterday's sales. B, they should be thinking about customer acquisition and what kind of things they need to execute, whether it's getting out a direct mail letter to local businesses as a follow-up, whether it's attending a business networking function, whether it's going and taking one of their better customers to lunch to talk to them about additional needs that they may have. Those are the kind of things that our franchisees are doing during their business day, and quite frankly, developing their team. Training their staff, recruiting staff, making sure that the things at the store level are being handled.
Okay.
And you mentioned earlier you want them to get out into the community, I guess. You just bet all your franchisees join some type of local support group.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times it's Chamber of Commerce. Sometimes it's the BNI or LATIP. Some of these lead groups that they join. Those are very effective for us.
Which would be perfect for that local business in the community. I imagine that's very effective.
It's very effective. It's very effective. I don't think many of our franchisees are not part of a group like that. And then some of them are members of the Rotary. A lot of them get involved in local charities, and cause type events. Right. So really we want PostNet on the back of the Little League uniforms on Saturday mornings.
Right.
That's the kind of local activity that we do. We have national activities which are where we drop direct mail into markets around our stores to increase awareness and everything else. But that local piece is an important piece in helping our franchisees be successful, and it's also very rewarding for our franchisees. They appreciate and like becoming a very integral part of the community.
Now, Brian, if that Little League team comes in last place, do you drop the sponsorship?
No, we don't. We don't.
Mark and I have been very impressed with what you and your partner have done with PostNet and in the industry. So what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur looking to buy a franchise, Brian?
Well, I think that the advice I would give is be diligent. Do your homework. But once you find something that's right, jump in with both feet because that's what it takes. One of the things that we all know is that being in business for yourself is not for everyone.
Right.
And every day, entrepreneurs, people in business, our franchisees have to make decisions. And so we're great believers in being very thorough and diligent. We have one of the more thorough processes in recruiting franchisees and educating franchisees before any contracts are signed or money is taken. But the other thing is we are looking for people that understand that once they've taken the time to do the right thing and learn about everything, and they found the right opportunity, that they need to be decisive and be ready to move forward.
Yeah, Marty and I have talked on past shows about it's such a big decision, that person making the leap into business ownership, and a lot of times there's that hesitancy. If you see someone that's a strong prospect, you like their background, you think they'll be a nice franchisee, but you can see and sense that they're hesitant, they're a little nervous about it. How do you handle that type of situation?
Well, they should be scared to death. I mean, really, quite frankly, it's a big deal, and the people that we are putting in business, like I said, have always worked for someone else and have never worked for for themselves. Right. And so I tell them, fear can that fear is a fear of failure. That's what's making them nervous. That's what's turning their stomach. And I said, you can do one of two things with that fear. One of them is it can stop you in your tracks, and sometimes that's a good thing. That certainly, if you can't overcome that fear, you should keep your job and continue to work for someone else. And obviously, the motivation is not strong enough to overcome that, and that's good because that keeps some people that shouldn't be in business for themselves out of business for themselves. But the other thing is successful franchisors move forward in light of that fear, and that is what motivates people every day to come in early, to stay late, to make sure that they do what they need to do, to make sure that they develop their team and their staff. I mean, that's what motivates me. It's not making an extra however many dollars every year. What motivates me is not failing, and the fear of failure. And I think that any successful entrepreneur would tell you that is a stronger fear motivation for them than the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, I would agree.
I'm sure you and Steve had a little bit of fear as you were franchising the concept, as always.
You still, what? 15 years in, we still do. I mean, not to say that it's a real situation, but quite frankly, that's why we work hard to continually improve, because we're competing against some good, big, strong competitors, and we're also entrepreneurs at heart, and we do not want to fail.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's a good motivation.
Yeah. What are PostNet's plans for the future?
Well, like I said,
growth,
continued improvement. I mean, we're a learning organization, and so we're going to continue to grow and develop unique and interesting programs. I mean, we've got, I mentioned the training, but we've got a first-year advertising program we implemented 3 or 4 years ago that is very effective at helping franchisees get a really strong start their first year. So we're constantly looking for ways to improve our system. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to grow our system. While we have 500 stores in 40 states, there are still a lot of opportunities for folks to, that this business is right for, to join our organization. So, as I mentioned, the long-term goal is to get 1,000, 1,500 U.S. locations up and running, and really have a really solid footprint where we're close to most customers in the United States. And with that, when we achieve that, there'll be additional opportunity for us and our franchisees. So so we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to do it with our open, collaborative culture that we've developed here, because it's the right thing to do, and it makes it more interesting and more positive for us and the franchisees that are part of our system.
That's great.
And you want franchisees who are going to owe you a lot of money in the future.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Right. We have about 60 seconds. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming the PostNet franchisee?
Yeah, well, like most companies today, we've got a great website. The one on the franchise opportunities is actually www.postnetfranchise.com.
Okay.
And there are, of course, links off of our consumer website, which is postnet.com. Our 800 number for franchise information is 800-338-7401. And that's answered 24 hours a day. And so anybody looking to get some basic information, brochure, that kind of stuff, they can call that number. And we're looking for for people where there's a good fit and where it makes sense for us to consider a relationship with them. So.
That's great.
You guys know what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Sure do. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Brian.
I do appreciate the opportunity, and I really very much enjoy the show.
Thanks,
Thank
Brian.
you very much.
All right, take care.
Talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Great show, huh, Don?
Yeah.
We could just hear the enthusiasm.
I always love the ways how they start the business, and him and his partner, him and Steve, just out of college, kind of were on the side. I think even during college, I think they.
It really is. Yeah, it's a great story. And you can tell that those two work very well together. So.
Right.
Just fantastic. So, again, for our listeners, go to franchiseinterviews.com, gofranchise.com, franchisefunding.net. And did I miss any?
I think you got them all, big guy.
I think I got them all. Don, so I'll be talking to you next week. Great show, Don.
Same to you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.